Hey everyone, thank you for joining me for Acts chapter 12. Let's go ahead and get right into it. About that time, Herod the king laid violent hands on some who belonged to the church. He killed James, the brother of John, with the sword, and when he saw that it pleased the Jews, he proceeded to arrest Peter also. This was during the days of unleavened bread, and when he had seized him, he put him in prison and delivered him over to 4 squads of soldiers to guard him, intending after the Passover to bring him out to the people. So Peter was kept in prison, but earnest prayer for him was made to God by the church. So in this first section, we're being introduced to what Herod Agrippa is doing, right? And we see that we see that the Jews are happy with him because he's persecuting Christians, right? Which it's believed that Herod did that to gain favor with the Jews. Because we all know how contentious and the different between Gentiles and Jews and Romans around. He wanted to make sure he curried the favor of the Jews. Now I think it's important to go over that. And it mentions the squads. And the way the Romans did it was one squad had 4 soldiers in it. So they had 4. So he said 4 squads. Well, that's because every 3 hours they would change shifts, and that's how they would watch him. And the important thing about these soldiers is, when they were put to guard, these centuries, when they were put to guard over a prisoner, they were held accountable to guard that prisoner, or they would suffer whatever punishment the prisoner was supposed to suffer. This is also the 12 is the last chapter where we hear about the church in Jerusalem without referencing Paul and ministry. But let's keep going on and see what happens, with Peter. Now, when Herod was about to bring him out on that very night, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers, bound with 2 chains and sentries before the doors were guarding the prisoner. And behold, an angel of the Lord stood next to him, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him, saying, "Get up quickly." And the chains fell off his hands. And the angel said to him, "Dress yourself and put on your sandals." And he did so. And he said to him, "Wrap your cloak around you and follow me." And he went out and followed him. He did not know that what was being done by the angel was real, but thought he was seeing a vision. When they had passed the first and the second guard, they came to the iron gate leading into the city. It opened for them of its own accord, and they went out and went along one street, and immediately the angel left him. When Peter came to himself, he said, "Now I am sure that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod and from all that the Jewish people were expecting." When he realized this, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose other name was Mark, where many were gathered together and were praying. And when he knocked at the door of the gateway, a servant girl named Rhoda came to answer. Recognizing Peter's voice, in her joy she did not open the gate, but ran in to report that Peter was standing at the gate. They said to her, "You are out of your mind." But she kept insisting that it was so, and they kept saying, "It isn't his angel." But Peter continued knocking, and when they opened, they saw him and were amazed. But motioning to them with his hand to be silent, he described to them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. And he said, tell these things to James and to the brothers." Then he departed and went to another place. Now, important here is a distinction in chapter 12. So, beginning of chapter 12, when, refers to, James, being taken out with a sword. That's not Jesus' brother. That's the disciple James. And then we go to over here in verse 14 and on. It's actually talking about Jesus, referring to Jesus' brother. So just to clarify the two Jameses in here. But let's keep going. Now, when day came, there was no little disturbance among the soldiers over what had become of Peter. And after Herod searched for him and did not find him, he examined the centuries and ordered that they should be put to death. Then he went down from Judea to Caesarea and spent time there. So again, where it says the centuries were put to death, because like I was mentioning, in the Roman custom was, the centuries would have to face the wrath of whatever the prisoner was supposed to face. So since they wanted to execute Peter, the men were being executed because they failed. Because obviously they wouldn't intentionally fall asleep knowing, because they obviously knew this. They were sacrificing themselves for the job, basically. So already knew what the penalty was if they failed. But let's keep going. Now Herod was angry with the people of Tyre and Sidon, and they came to him with one accord, and having persuaded Blastus, the king's chamberlain, they asked for peace, because their country depends on the king's country for food. On an appointed day, Herod put on his royal robes, took his seat upon the throne, and delivered an oration to them. And the people were shouting, "The voice of a God, and not of a man." Immediately an angel of the Lord struck him down, because he did not give God the glory, and he was eaten by worms and breathed his last. But the word of God increased and multiplied, and Barnabas and Saul returned from Jerusalem when they had completed their service, bringing with them John, whose other name was Mark. So in here we see that immediately, Herod's punished. He didn't give God the glory. So therefore, he saw himself as God. So he didn't give God the glory. So immediately he was punished for it. And I think what's important about the chapters we see with Herod Agrippa, we see that the chapter 12 starts off with him persecuting Christians, and it ends with his eventually his punishment, his untimely death. And it just shows, all the trials, just another chapter that shows the trials and tribulations they have to face, and how easy as Christians we have it today in regards to sharing our faith. But that's all I have for you. Y'all have a blessed day.